Massage therapist or masseuse, have you ever had a session turned sexual with a client? How did it go down? Please consider subscribing if you enjoy the video. My massage therapist told me of a time a very hot woman was in for the first time. He told her to undress to her comfort level and left for her to do so. Usually at this point you then lay down under the sheet, but he entered a few minutes later to find her sitting naked in a chair asking what she should do next. He gives more detailed instructions now. I had a very sweet female client face up and was massaging through her neck and occipital muscles, the base of her skull, when she leaned her face over and kind of pressed her cheek into my forearm and side and nuzzled against me. She's just someone who totally zones out during massage, so while it wasn't overtly sexual, it certainly was an unusually intimate gesture. She snapped out of it, and when I adjusted myself away from her cheek ASAP without being jarring, and blushed with immediate embarrassment. Other than that, I have a few clients, male and female, who make oddly sexual noises but no other obvious signs of arousal. With some of them I'm prepared for the worst when I ask them to turn over onto their backs. I think some of them may be getting more out of the treatment than I intend, but nothing untoward has happened, although we have had some people email and phone us to ask us if we do that kind of thing. If I wanted to jerk people off for money, I could do that without going through 3 years of school and paying annual professional dues. My spouse, who is also a therapist, had a teenage male client of hers reach his hand out to touch her thigh while she was standing next to the table, and she politely and firmly shut him down. That's about as bad as it's gotten so far. Former esthetician here, not a masseuse, but I performed waxing on all parts of the body, so I certainly have a story or two. So, there's the Brazilian wax, which is everything gone from your downstairs, front and back. Salons have a male version they cheekily like to call manzillions. I've had a number of these, and without fail, when it comes time to take the towel away and start, there's at least a semi-chub going on. I'd explain that this happens with everyone, as penises aren't very self-aware. They just know they're out. There's a lady, and they're just happy to be there. I then place my first strip of wax, let it set, then and it would be like letting the air out of a balloon. Strangely, I never got any phone numbers. Oh, and to dear butthole you have to be on all fours. One of my friend's exes was a massage therapist. She said she constantly had people asking for hand jobs or to wear a low-cut shirt and such. Don't actual places for that exist in every major city? Why bother someone who could lose their job over it? My stepdad is a professional massage therapist. Asking him for stuff like that is answered with a no, and continuing means you're no longer a client. My mom is a massage therapist. She has worked at several chiropractic offices. Oftentimes, if you're good enough and trustworthy enough, the chiropractors will give you the keys so you can see clients on the weekends. I once had to take an Uber to her work when she was scheduled to massage this one guy. He was married and new to the US. He had been sending messages to my mom, which made her question his intent, but chalked it up to him not speaking a lot of English. I get a call from her telling me to Uber to her place of work as soon as possible. Apparently the guy had sent a message with this code phrase that in the massage world means things are going to become sexual. So I'm the first to arrive. My mom gets there and tries to downplay the situation to make herself feel better by saying things like, well, maybe he just didn't know what that meant. I could be drawing a conclusion that isn't true. He has a wife after all. Man comes in with candy and flowers. He sees me sitting in the chair really confused, hands them to my mom. She massages him. He pays her, gives me a sideways glance, and leaves. Okay, so I am a massage therapist. I was working out of a gym and the guy asked for a 30-minute massage on his legs and abs because he was a runner. Nothing unusual about that request. So I finished massaging his legs and was massaging his abs. I pull down the sheet to his hips so his abs are exposed. He is completely naked under the sheet. Not unusual, but the sheet is covering his privates. As I'm massaging his abs, he reaches his hand up to scratch his nose, but when his hand goes back down, he accidentally pulled down the sheet to expose his junk. I'm not bothered, I just pull the sheet back up over his junk and keep working. Then the sheet accidentally slipped down his hip again after another minute. So this time I grabbed the sheet and tucked it around him this time and kept working without a word. He didn't try again. I continued as if nothing had happened, finished the massage like a professional and sent him on his way, and thankfully he never came back. My mom was a massage therapist for a few years. Never shared when she had issues like that, but there was one couple who would come in for separate sessions about every 2-3 weeks. Apparently one day, the wife jokes that the massages are better than sex. My mom, since they're all on good terms, jokes with the husband about it the next time he's in. He pulls his head out of the pillow long enough to say, "Don't make me choose. I can't choose." I have different side of story. I was about 15 years old when that happened and it still gives me creeps. After a car accident, I was assigned a massage therapist to massage my shoulder, since it was injured. Nothing else, just my hand and shoulder. So I come to the session and I see this really young guy waiting for me. I asked him, "Can I keep my clothes?" And he said that I should be in my underwear. Already felt weird, but whatever, I carried on. So I lay on the table and he massages me, when suddenly he starts massaging my back, then lower back. I already felt super uncomfortable at this point, and then he pulls a bit of my underwear, and think of fact that his hands were really oily, he slipped his hands right in between my ass. Oh my god. It was almost the end of the session and it did not last long, but I was so shocked that I freezed. I dressed up and I went to the reception to cancel any sessions with him. I did not report the ass accident. All the receptionist said, "What went wrong? The old ladies love this guy. You will make one happy by giving your space." I'm a physiotherapist, but I have extensive training in deep tissue massage and dry needling. Pretty much every time I treat my girlfriend it ends with sex. Probably the closest thing to answer you're gonna get. You're probably not gonna hear any stories about people with licenses doing anything sexual with someone, as if it ever got out they would immediately lose their billing number. But I will say I've worked in a gym before where the RMT was sleeping with a few of his patients in and outside of the gym. Not my story, but a coworker's. He was giving a massage to a client and things were getting flirty. She was an attractive woman and he pushed it. Well, I guess he sucked at reading clues because she was married and was being friendly. She filed a complaint on him and he ended up losing his license. My mom and dad ran their own massage therapy business. My mom always said if a guy started giving any kind of signals that she would just start asking him about his mother. She said it never failed her. Oh, I have a story as a client. I used to live in a great city located in Southern California. Across the street where I lived was a massage parlor ran out of an old historic home. I used to frequent as much as I could afford and things were great, or so I thought. I had never been to a masseuse before then and thought big tubs, showers, and champagne was normal since it was the only point of reference I had. After each session I had, the ladies frequently asked me if I needed anything else or wanted to extend. Being very budget conscious, I'd say no thank you. It was great though. I'd get dressed and go home. On my last occasion though, things just felt off. She had me flip from my stomach and massage at my quads and let her fingers drift a little and would ask me if I wanted anything more. I'd sheepishly reply no, this is great, thank you. As we finished she asked me one more time if I'd like anything else, but I declined. A few weeks later I'm walking home from work and the police are all over my street. As many of you have already guessed, they were busting the place for being a known brothel. I tiptoed back home and waited for them to come to my house and bust me. But thankfully that never happened, smiley face. A guy I know ended up dating his chiropractor. There was mild flirting for a few sessions, and then she messaged him to say that he would need to switch to getting treated by a different chiro at the practice. He was pretty disappointed until she hinted, because we aren't allowed to date our clients. Few weeks later, so, babe, Dr. Steven doesn't do that inner quad massage that you used to do. Was that? Yep, totes inappropriate. 10/10 would injure back again. My mom's a masseuse and she says there are a lot of instances where clients try to make things sexual but she never reciprocate, but it can get pretty nasty. One time she told me that a dude asked her to massage down there and she refused, so he grabbed her boob and just kept his hand there for a while, and my mom didn't know what to do, so she just kept doing her job. There are also instances of people calling to make appointments and ending the call with "Do you guys suck it?" because I guess they think they're being subtle. Other than that, there's a lot of unnecessarily sexual moaning, but my mom just thinks that's funny. In 15 years, I've had 4 guys try to turn the session sexual. Grosses me out. I make sure to give their name and phone number to all of my therapist friends as a heads up, because if they tried with me, they're gonna try another therapist until they get lucky. This reminds me of when I was 17 and job hunting. I already ran my own business but wanted another job just to keep busy. Saw an ad for masseuse with training. Cool. So I go and apply online, send a headshot, and I get a call to come in for an interview. This gentleman has me meet him at this huge old plantation-like house that doubled as a band. Did the interview and then he starts saying some weird shit about having personal clients and how to make them happy, etc. Mind you, he knew I was 17. He told me he had clients who he personally would send me because they're regulars and tip extremely well. Basically, I was being hired as an underage prostitute and he thought I wouldn't realize what was happening. When he told me I'd be working commission plus tips, I got the whole idea. I told him I'd let him know and hightailed it out. I reported the place after about a week of him harassing me to start working because he showed his clients my headshot and they really wanted to meet me. He was arrested for child prostitution for hiring a masseuse who was only 15. I had a client start flirting with me while on my table. I reminded her that the session is purely medical and I'd like to keep the conversation about her and what she's dealing with. She stroked my leg once in a sexual manner and I threatened to end the session there if she tried something like that again. After that, the rest of her session was smooth. I take stuff like that pretty seriously. I'm not setting our profession back 30 years because some people think someone touching them means anything sexual. This was after a few years of no sexual anything with anyone, but regardless, I'm not throwing away years of hard work and risking a lawsuit over someone feeling frisky. My sister, wife had a male client who after the session decided to jerk off when she left him to allow him to get dressed. She saw he had jerked off all her massage table and had gone through a lot of tissues trying to clean it up, so the salon issued a warning on his account to remove all tissues and towels from the room once the massage is done. My wife said it was the funniest thing when he came in again. After the massage, she calls the front desk and 2 girls come in and take everything out of the room. He got dressed really fast and left in shame and never came back. Client here. So I had a buddy who lived with a guy I didn't really know. The dude mentioned that his girlfriend was in MT school and needs to clock hours and was only $50 per session, which was pretty good. So I told him I'd be glad to be her customer. She was my therapist for a couple months. I had been through a bad breakup, so she doubled as a listening ear. Months down the road, her and that guy broke up. I asked him if it was an issue to keep using her for massages. He was cool with it. On a 5-hour drive back from a road trip with some friends, we hit a flat tire. I called her and told her that I had to reschedule. She said no, she'll stay up and wait. At this point I was suspicious of her intentions, cause why stay awake till 12 a.m. for a massage? But I didn't care because she was beautiful. Well, turns out I was right. Got done with the massage. Offered her a back rub as thanks for staying awake waiting for me. Then it just immediately evolved into kissing. Clothes off. Then the rest. We hooked up on and off for about a year. But that's a whole different story. My first ever remedial massage was when I was 15. It was to treat a groin strain, and as is typical with 15-year-old boys, any hint of attention in the area caused me to get super hard. As soon as she noticed it, the masseuse handed me a little waste basket and a box of tissues and said she'd be back in 5 minutes before leaving the room. So I had my wanking cleaned up and my boner was down to half-mast by the time she came back, but I was 15, so the moment she started rubbing the area for treatment, it all sprang up again. This time she just ignored it as best she could. 8. So I used to work at this massage in Florida. It wasn't anything fancy, but it did the job. And we had a couple regulars that would come in maybe once a week. So this one regular that always asked for me came in one day and we started the usual small talk while I was prepping my things. And he says that he just recently got out of a really bad marriage. Our massage place isn't one that does happy endings, but I've given a hand job to a client before. So this guy isn't bad looking, maybe 7/10. Good job. Nice car. He always tips nice. So towards the end of the massage he asks if he could get extra. I was confused at first and said, "You can always get a shampoo or go in our massage chair for extra $. He said, "No, I mean, can you do something extra?" At this point I know what he meant and I smirked. So he flipped over to lay on his back and face me, and I went to whisper in his ear, "Epstein didn't kill himself." Please subscribe if you liked the video. It really helps the channel to grow. See you again.